Welcome to our discussion on the types of interest groups. A wide variety of political interest groups exercise their muscle on virtually every type of policy question, from those concerning birth, such as what is the minimum hospital stay an insurance company must cover after a woman gives birth, to matters related to death, such as what are the practices by funeral directors that should be banned by the government. Despite the broad range of issues around which interest groups coalesce, political scientists generally categorize interest groups by what kind of issues concern them and who benefits from the group's activities. For example, some interest groups focus primarily on economic decisions that affect their members. Other interest groups pursue ideological, issue-based, or religion-based goals. Yet others lobby for benefits for society at large, and still others advocate on behalf of foreign interests. When an economic interest group lobbies government, the benefits for their members can be direct or indirect. In some cases, the economic benefits flow directly from the government to the interest group members, as when an agricultural interest group successfully presses for subsidies. Monies given by the government to the producers of a particular crop or product, often to influence the volume of production for that commodity. This is an example of 10 crops receiving federal subsidies as direct payments to farmers between 1995 and 2009. For an example, in 2008, the finance, insurance, and real estate sector spent nearly $460 million on federal lobbying efforts. These same industries were among the prime beneficiaries of both federal government bailouts and the 2009 economic stimulus package. In other instances, economic interest groups lobby for or against policies that, though not directly benefiting their members, have an indirect impact on the interest group's membership. That was the case when many unions, including the AFL-CIO, lobbied against the creation of private Social Security accounts, fearing that this privatization would result in a decrease in Social Security retirement benefits for their members. Corporate and business interests. Large corporate and smaller business interest groups are among the most successful U.S. pressure groups with respect to their influence on government. These groups typically seek policies that benefit a particular company or industry. For example, the Motion Picture Association of America, or MPAA, represents the 7 major U.S. manufacturers and distributors of movies and television programs. The MPAA lobbies policymakers, often by hosting pre-release screenings of films and lavish dinner receptions, with the goal of securing the passage of anti-piracy laws, which aim to prevent the illegal copying of movies and to penalize individuals who sell them. This advocacy benefits the group's members and their employees, because anti-piracy laws help to ensure that any copies of movies sold are legal and thus profitable for MPAA members. Certain industries associations are standalone organizations, such as the National Association of Realtors and the National Beer Wholesalers Association. But industries and business groups also commonly advocate for policies using umbrella organizations, which are interest groups representing groups of industries or corporations. Examples of umbrella business organizations include the Business Roundtable, which represents the chief executive officers, or CEOs, of 150 large corporations, and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, a federation of local chambers of commerce that represent about 3 million large and small businesses. Often, corporate and business groups compete against labor groups. This rivalry is a natural result of having different constituencies. Typically, corporate interests advocate on behalf of the company owners, stockholders, and officers, whereas labor unions champion employees' interests. Like corporate interest groups, labor interest groups include both national labor unions and umbrella organizations of unions. The AFL-CIO, an umbrella organization made up of more than 50 labor unions, is among the nation's most powerful interest groups, although its influence has waned over the past several decades as union membership has declined generally. During the 1950s and 1960s, nearly 35% of all U.S. workers were union members. By 1983, membership had decreased to about 20%, and today about 12% of all U.S. workers belong to unions. In part, this decline stems from changes in the U.S. economy, with many highly unionized manufacturing jobs being replaced by less unionized service sector jobs. Given the drop in union membership, labor interest groups' influence has also waned, although the union's reduced clout is in part due to a lack of cohesion among labor union members. Like corporate and business interest groups, labor unions pursue policies that benefit their members, although these are frequently at odds with the positions of corporate and business interest groups. And like corporate and business interest groups, labor unions sometimes press for policies that primarily benefit their own members, and at other times, they promote policies that benefit all union workers and sometimes even non-union workers. For For example, in 2007, the AFL-CIO successfully lobbied Congress for an increase in the federal minimum wage, which benefited the members of many unions whose contracts are based on federally mandated minimum wages, but also many non-union workers who are paid the minimum wage. Of all types of U.S. interest groups, agricultural interest groups probably have the most disproportionate amount of influence given the small number of farmers and farm workers in the country relative to the general population. And because agricultural producers in the U.S. are also very diverse, ranging from small farmers to huge multinational agribusinesses, it is not surprising to see divergent opinions among people employed in the agricultural sector. The largest agricultural interest group today is the American Farm Bureau Federation, or AFBF, which grew out of the networks of county farm bureaus formed in the 1920s. With more than 5 million farming members, the AFBF is one of the most influential interest groups in the United States, primarily because of its close relations with key agricultural policymakers. It takes stands on a wide variety of issues that have an impact on farmers, including subsidies, budget and tax policies, immigration policies that affect farm workers, energy policies, trade policies, and environmental policies. For example, when President Obama sought to end direct subsidies to farmers with sales of over $500,000 as part of his 2010 budget proposal, the opposition by agricultural interest groups, including the AFBF, killed the proposal in Congress. In addition to large-scale general agricultural interest groups such as the AFBF, there is an industry-specific interest group representing producers for nearly every crop or commodity produced in the agricultural sector. Back to this chart. It shows that corn producers are among the most effective groups in securing subsidies for their growers. Between 1995 and 2006, more than 1.5 million corn farmers across the United States received in excess of $56 billion in government subsidies. Table 7.1, which you're looking at right now, reveals as well that the producers of several other crops, wheat, corn, soybeans, and rice, have managed to secure subsidies of more than $10 billion each from 1995 to 2006. Trade and professional interests. Nearly every professional occupation, doctor, lawyer, engineer, chiropractor, dentist, accountant, and even video game developer has a trade or professional group that focuses on its interests. These interest groups take stands on a variety of policy matters, many of which indirectly affect their membership. This is the end of part 1 of 2 parts of this video.